Hey everybody, this is Nate Smoyer, and you're listening to the Tech Nest Podcast. This is the show where we sit down with the leaders in real estate and technology to find out what they're doing to transform the way we buy, sell, and invest in real estate. If you've got an interest in real estate and technology, stick around. You're in the right place.
Hey everybody, we got a great show for you today. We have the VP of Marketing from a company called Curbio. They're based out of Washington, D.C., founded in 2017, and were just added to Housing Wire's Tech 100. And they are helping the pre-sale market. So get this, maybe you've got a house that today's worth $200,000, but if you did some renovations, it could be worth $280,000. And the renovations are going to cost $40,000. And you want to sell the house. Of course, you want to net the most amount of money, but you don't have the $40,000 to do the renovations. Who do you turn to? Well, Curbio is working with real estate agents to bring this option to consumers. The consumer pays nothing up front. They sign the contract, they work with Curbio and the realtor. They get the house all renovated, they put it on the market, they sell it, and only at the closing table do they then pay Curbio for the renovations. And we go through all the details of how this is working, what makes Curbio really stand apart from all the other options that are out there in the renovations business, some of the tech angle that they're taking to make this an efficient process. They're in over 20 markets. They hire employees in every one of those markets, so it's not just a scattered network of contractors. I think that's really what's going to enable them to continue building on this, and they're aggressively adding new markets to their offering. I think you're going to love this one. Rikki has a lot of great things to say, so kick back, enjoy. Well, hey, Rikki, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad we had a chance to get connected. And I know we're doing this first thing in the morning, so hopefully we're both nice and caffeinated. And
yes, I am fully caffeinated, ready to go.
Yeah, I'm on coffee number 2, and it's only 7 a.m. my time. So today's going to be a wiry one. Well, let's jump off with the basic as we always do. Please go ahead, introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Rikki Rogers. I am Vice President of Marketing at Curbio. Curbio is a pre-sale renovation company that modernizes the renovation experience with technology and has developed a really unique pre-sale renovation solution that lets every homeowner unlock the true equity and profit potential in their home.
All right. There's a lot to unpack in there. I'm actually really excited for this because this is something I think is a pretty cool model. And anything that I think that is a value add to the consumer, which to me, this sounds like a tremendous value add to the consumer, I'm all in favor of. First things first, so congrats on making the Housing Wire Tech 100. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're very excited. There's a lot of great real estate and property tech companies on that list. So we're excited to be on there.
Yeah. Housing Wire's been doing a great job covering companies in that space. So good on you guys for making that list. All right, so let's jump into this here. So you said pre-sale renovations company.
Exactly. Yes.
Walk me down what that really means.
Sure. So when you think of a homeowner getting ready to sell their property, most homeowners and all real estate agents understand that one of the smartest choices you can make before putting your home on the market is making some updates first. Because today's buyers are really looking for move-in ready properties more so than ever before. The demographics of today's buyers have really shifted. So buyers today are more likely to have a family with 2 working parents, to have longer commutes, to work longer hours. And of course, they've grown up watching HGTV, and that has not translated into a love of renovation. They have a love of renovated properties. And they're also,
every house you buy, there isn't a bus. You don't just yell, "Move that bus," and you get the grand review.
You don't click your heels and Joanna Gaines shows up and shiplap up and you have your dream home. But they're also more likely to own multiple homes throughout their lifetime. Fewer families are staying in one property forever, and taking a lot of emotional pride in renovating that property to make it their own.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, housing inventory is aging. So right now, I think it's 85% of homes are more than 14 years old. I can pull that exact stat for you and send it to you after we're done. But essentially, as housing inventory ages, buyers' expectations are still going up. Those two things are not in line. And because today's buyers are less tied to that emotional attachment to having to own their own property, instead of buying a property and renovating it, they're just waiting it out. They're just renting until they find a move-in ready property. So sellers are leaving billions of dollars a year because they don't renovate their properties on the market. And then flippers and wholesalers and iBuyers come in and flip those homes for a huge profit. And those are homes, that's profit the seller could have kept themselves. So, but most of the time, the reason sellers don't renovate is because renovation can be a huge nightmare, right? It's stressful, it's time consuming.
It's also not a guarantee though.
Right, yeah, and there's risk, right? So especially if you have to put the cash up front and you don't know whether the renovations are actually going to increase the value of the home. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve, and that we've solved with our new approach to pre-sale renovation. So we exclusively renovate properties that are about to be sold. And we've developed a really deep expertise in which renovations actually increase the value of the home and deliver a really strong return on investment. Then we defer all payment until settlement. So it's removing the risk until closing. I've recently been told that calling it settlement is an East Coast thing.
That's you and I were talking about that.
Yeah.
It's like, I got to find out what the Midwest terminology is on that here. I got to find out.
Closing to be consistent, but
it's all good.
So we specialize in renovations that are going to help that home sell, and work with the real estate agent to understand the nuances of that neighborhood and that city. And then we've streamlined the process from beginning to end. So since we're the renovation company ourselves, curated a portfolio of materials that, one, is going to eliminate the need for the seller to go to Home Depot or manage the selection and ordering of all these materials. So it's removing all that stress. And that we're renovating according to buyer's taste and not seller's taste.
I have two really good friends back in the Northwest, very smart people, very gifted in design, fairly gifted in handiness. They bought a new house, new to them. They bought a house and they documented their whole renovations, using Instagram. And I think she posted, it was something like, it was every trip to Home Depot or Lowe's. They're like trip number 1, trip number 2. In the 80s, 80 trips back and forth. And this is just, this is one of the painful pieces. And anyone who's ever done their own renovations but doesn't do it for a living will go through this, because you'll always pick up something that has the wrong attachment, or it's more than you needed, or you bought 4 when you needed half of 1. It's just like, all those different things, and that's wasted time, energy, and that's the wear and tear on just like, I think, the person that you're taking that out. And that's everything before we get to the part where, okay, now depersonalize, get all your junk out of the way. Now let's have 100 strangers come through your home and make sure you're cool with all that. I mean, that's before all that stress.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and even if your friends had decided to not DIY and to use a typical general contractor, they would have run into the same problems, right? Because general contractors are not experts in renovation ROI or in which renovations are going to increase the value of the home. GCs are experts in doing what the homeowner asks, right? And they're also really incentivized to try to expand the scope of work, because the bigger the project, the more money they get. So for sellers who really need to be thinking about, how much do I need to invest here to get the most bang for my buck, the GC is going to be saying, oh, let's just add this on. Let's just add this on. So that, lack of alignment between the goals makes it even more stressful and even riskier if you go the route of using a traditional contractor.
Yeah, so let's talk about that briefly. So, trying to figure out, okay, so, and we talked about this when we first connected, what separates Curbio from just being a contractor, right? Because in theory, I could set up a website, I could run some ads, collect some leads, and then send out, hire a GC. Maybe I was working Chattanooga and Cleveland, like the tertiary markets or smaller city secondary markets that have that aging inventory that are gaining some popularity, right? Perfect scenarios for this. What would be the difference between me doing that and what you guys are doing?
I think there are a few major differences. One of them is the pre-sale renovation expertise that we've already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But the other is really the approach and the scale. So the reason that most projects take so long to complete and why most people are not known for meeting deadlines and timeliness because the supply chain is really fragmented and complicated. So and there's a lot of preparation ahead of the project kickoff. So finding the materials, making sure the materials are high quality and available on time, right? And then of course, choosing the materials that are going to appeal to buyers. So we have closely studied those components of renovation, and we have a whole production and design team that all they do is stay ahead of those trends, curate that supply chain so that we know that we can get those materials exactly when we need them. Between the day the seller signs our contract to complete the renovation to the day we're kicking the project off is 10 days on average.
Wow.
Really fast turnaround time there. And not to mention, of course, the seller doesn't have to deal with the stress of handling all of that. But also when you compare us to some of the other deferred payment solutions that are out there right now, because there are some programs being rolled out by real estate brokerages that solve the financing part of the problem. So they'll let homeowners do some work before they put their home on the market, and they'll basically front the money for them. But I say this when I'm talking to people a lot, but deferring payments the easiest part, right? The complicated part is actually doing the work and having that expertise. So we have on-the-ground project managers in every city we work in. They're full-time Curbio employees, and they're handling the projects. And then on the back end is the experience, and that's really where the technology comes in. Most customers who have bad renovation experiences, it rarely has anything to do with the price. It's almost always because of communication and the overall experience. And we knew that right away that we had to make that a priority with our model. So we've developed a client portal where the real estate agent and the seller communicate with their project manager. They see a detailed virtual timeline. They have to approve any changes, and they get daily photo and video updates from their project manager, which is really valuable if the seller's no longer in the property. Renovating homes where the seller's already moved to another state. They don't have to worry about, having someone check up on the property, and that person's normally the realtor, right? So it's eliminating that stress for the realtor too.
Yeah, well, and let's just be real. If you're in a busy market, that means that realtor has, they may have 3 or 4 other deals pending at that moment. They're working 16 to 20 leads that say they're ready to buy, but could not do anything for the next 180 days.
Yeah.
They're filling their pipeline. They're doing open houses. And, in a busy season, they're looking as, frantic as ever. And so to stopping by to grab the photos, like that's, it sounds like a basic thing, but you add that to the already big list and, it's just not, it's not realistic that it's going to happen. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then having that communication directly with the customer, that's, That's something that I would like to have with like every service in life.
Mhm.
Even just with like when I hire, if I hire an agency to handle something for me, I feel like sometimes I'm the worst customer because I just follow up like 2 days later, like, all right, where we're at, like what's the next thing? If I've got any questions, then doubts start setting in. And the moment doubts start setting in, like that's where the person regrets the decision or starts having those like, oh no, what have I done? Do I really want to go down this path?
I mean, I think you make a good point because what you're describing is you're used to on-demand services. Like you are used to having a completely transparent customer experience when you order a ride share, like when you use a ride
When
share
I
app.
order a pizza, I want to know it hits the oven.
It, right? So that's what we expect.
Yeah.
And the renovation industry has not kept up with that change,
Yeah.
in the way customers expect to be served. So that's a big priority for us. I think on the front end too, um, part of our tech platform is our virtual walkthroughs. So we do all of our estimates virtually without sending a crew to the property. We use 3D video technology,
Oh, wow.
and we deliver a fixed price detailed proposal. And when we first started doing this, we felt like this was pretty straightforward. We're giving you a detailed proposal with, letting you know exactly how much everything is going to cost. But what we were surprised to find is how excited we were about the level of detail and the transparency in our proposals. Because most of the time when you get a quote from a GC, it's very vague, deliberately so. So you don't
There's
go
10 items listed and one number, which is the
right.
final cost, and
Yes.
nothing is broken out.
Right. But in our proposals, you know exactly how much your kitchen's going to be. And then
Yep.
in the portal, you're seeing all your signed documents. And again, it's these things are they're not easy to do, but they're so critical to the experience. And realtors really love that too, because when they recommend a company like ours, they're putting their reputation on the line. If their
Oh,
client is
totally. Yeah.
going to come back to them.
Yeah. How many markets are you guys in at the moment?
I think we're up to 23 right now. So
Wow.
we are in major cities across the United States. Most recently, we've launched San Francisco and Denver, our two newest markets. And within the next 6 weeks, we'll be launching Las Vegas and the Los Angeles Riverside area. So we're
Wow.
those two.
Yeah, there's plenty of homes out those way. And yeah, I think there's so much about that, but I mean, I don't want to harp just on too much on like the deferred payment, but I do want to get into just the details of how that works, right? So, because I think this is key to just the amount of friction on the front end. There's a lot of people who have homes that are 10, 15,000 away from even just being financeable, let alone sellable. Just, and if they're not financeable, they're no longer just 15,000 less in market value. Now they're like 30, 40 grand less because only buyers are flipper wholesalers who are buying cash and they're not going to pay full value. So walk me through, when someone signs a contract, how do you manage that? And then how does Curbio get paid? Because that's obviously a big deal.
Yeah.
that you guys end up getting paid because you're taking some risk up front, which means obviously that's why you go through the detailed process in the front end of, the 3D walkthrough and the detailed estimate, because you have to know your costs. So yeah, walk me through, how do you get paid?
Yeah. So we start each project before, at the estimate stage, we begin with an analysis of the ROI. So what is the potential return on a renovation for this home? And also an equity analysis. So we're making sure that there's enough equity in the home, that there's going to be plenty of proceeds at closing to cover the cost of the renovation. This is one of the reasons we only work with sellers that have a real estate agent, because the real estate agent is going to have a very clear view of what this house could potentially sell for renovated and what it would have to sell for in its existing condition. And we want to make sure between those two values, between the as-is value and the after renovation value, that there's a significant lift. It has to be a good business case, not just for us, but for the seller. If we find that, the renovation is going to be $50,000, but based on the market, the real estate agent would only be able to sell that home for $20,000 more, we're going to tell the seller, this probably isn't a good, smart choice for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're all on the same side here. Nobody gets paid until closing. So, we all have the same goal of getting the home on the market quickly, selling it for the best possible price. Now, once the seller signs the contract with us, they agree to put the home on the market within a week of us finishing the project. So they have to put it on the market. They agree to leave it on the market until it sells. So once it's on the market, they can't take it off. If there's a love it or list it situation, if they decide that they don't, they no longer want to list the house, that's fine. They just have to pay for the renovation work. They just pay the contract amount. And then they're released from the contract.
How often does that happen? You guys come in, you totally transform. They're like, why would we move? We have what we want.
It has only happened, I'm less than 5 times in all the projects we've ever done. And in most of those cases, it's not because they decided not to move. It's just because they decided they didn't want to list the house right away. Something in their timeline changed. But it's interesting because that kind of shows that, again, the deferred payment is incredibly attractive, but many people that work with us are more compelled by the convenience and the speed. So it's rare, but it does happen, and that's fine. And then we also, in our contract, we do require them to make periodic reductions in the list price.
Okay, yep.
About 2% a month, but we're flexible with that for, we're going to make that a little less steep for homes over the $1 million, because they have a longer sales cycle. And then once the home is sold, we are paid through the proceeds of the sale at closing. So we file a deed of trust on the property, and that is going to signal to the settlement company that we need to be paid for our work. So the homeowner, they never even write us a check. We're just automatically paid.
It's so beautiful. This is one of the things, like when we talk about, a lot of people push back about real estate's a people business. You can't replace this or you can't change that. But you know what? It's also a process heavy business with so many people trying to put their hands in the cookie jar at the same time.
Right.
And what you're describing, like the operations behind the curtain, probably looks like a madhouse. And then you come out on the showroom floor and it's nice and clean, it's quiet, things are moving along. And that's the whole point. And I think when I look at you guys versus anyone else as a traditional rehabber or contractor, like those would be like the glaring differences, as automating some of those processes, smoothing that out and having it down and detailed to communication across multiple parties, both the end customer, but also the key person, the realtor, who I do want to talk about. So obviously they're so key to your transaction. You've got your own contractors. Do you have your own network of agents, or are you looking at this as, reach agents as a distribution strategy and then rely on their referral?
We do exclusively market to real estate agents. So early on, we made the decision that we were going to keep realtors front and center in this transaction. I think there's a lot of tech companies in this space that are trying to replace the real estate agent or take the homeowner relationship away from the real estate agent. And that's something that's really different about Curbio. We're very confident and we appreciate and respect the value that the real estate agent brings to that relationship. So that's, again, we only work with sellers that have a real estate agent because we rely on their local expertise and combine that with our pre-sale renovation expertise.
Right.
And realtors really love working with us because they are, one, no longer responsible for managing all these projects. Most of the time, the realtor ends up becoming the de facto GC. I mean, I'm sure if you talk to any realtor, they'll tell you oh yeah, I'm always, helping my clients pick out the tile, making sure they don't paint the walls a crazy color. I'm going to Home Depot for them. I'm chasing down contractors and collecting estimates. And it's incredibly time consuming. And that's time they could be using for lead gen or for marketing or for networking. So they love that they can hand that piece over to someone that they trust.
Yeah.
And then they're also using Curbio to win the listing. So many agents are using us to approach sellers that maybe are on the fence about selling because they know they need to make renovations, and walking up to them and saying, hey, I have a partner that can handle this whole renovation for you. You don't have to pay anything until the house sells.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great way to add value to that relationship.
Yeah.
And we provide agents, on our website and through our webinars, et cetera, with the assets they need to explain the value of pre-sale renovation to their sellers.
Yeah.
So that realtor enablement is a big piece of our strategy.
Yeah. And I think, when I like kind of looked at that from a real estate agent's perspective, as I've shared on the show before, in a past life, I worked as a real estate agent. So like every time I hear, like I go through these stories, I'm like, and I had less than a year in it. I like to say that, I saw the light early, but for me, I was a terrible residential real estate agent for many reasons. But I just think through and recall like so many of those experiences and the feelings, especially because it's in the moment, the feelings that really matter. And what I hear with Curbio is there's such a value add even to the real estate agents, what they bring to their client and no cost. And that's a totally different pitch than everyone else vying for the agent's attention. The standard pitch that I tell everyone, if this is your model, just prepare to close, is if you have to say, but if you just close one deal, it pays for itself. I'm like, you can't do that because there's 20 other companies saying that. And if you close 20 deals and each of them has to, pay back, that's a break-even business. That's not profitable. That's not interesting. So, I like this because it brings more value to the agent to extend to the end consumer. I think that's a really unique position and offering. I don't know how many direct competitors you guys have. I haven't looked into it, but it sounds like really what you're competing against is indirect. Is it a fragmented network of contractors and managers and trusted sources and not literal just trade contractors, but actual contractors. Like you're not having employees, you're having to find people and verify they've got insurance and the backings and they can pull permits. And so there's a ton happening there. I think it's pretty cool. I love to talk about the customer for a little bit. So maybe you can break it down. Who is the perfect customer for Curbio?
Yeah, so the perfect customer is a homeowner who has equity in their property, is ready to sell, and wants to maximize the profit they leave the closing table with, and whose home can benefit from $15,000 or up of work. Our minimum is $15,000. So homeowners who are looking for kitchen and bathroom remodels, our projects really span all different spaces and all different price points. So we do everything from, whole home remodels where we're, ripping out everything and replacing everything from the bottom up to, $25,000 spruce ups where we're painting, we're doing some electrical, updating the lighting, replacing the flooring. And then we also do exterior work, so roofs, driveways, siding, etc.
Yep.
So I think the ideal customer is someone who is ready to move on to the next chapter of their life, and who is doesn't want to manage the renovation themselves. I would say if you are the type of homeowner who loves to be super involved and wants to, pick out everything down to the, the color of screws that you're using to put cabinets together, like Curbio is not going to be for you, right?
Yeah.
Our approach is turnkey and trying to make it as painless for the homeowner as possible. But can I go back for a second to what you said about the competitive space?
Yeah, go for it.
I just wanted to mention, because you're right, we don't have any, there's no direct competitor that's doing exactly what we're doing. And you're right that what we're coming up against, or who we're truly competing against, is to some degree traditional contractors. And I think I mentioned earlier, there's real estate brokerages now, many of them have these concierge services that handle the part of the problem, but we don't really see those as competitors. And case in point, the majority of our the realtors that we partner with are coming from brokerages with those types of services. I think those types of services are great for small projects, because not every project is going to benefit from that on the ground, hands-on project manager. Where we're really adding value is the larger projects that need that expertise and ROI, and are going to have significant impact on the value of the home. That's the space that we're really playing in.
Got it. I appreciate you sharing that and going into detail there. I'm curious, I know you guys have only been up and running since 2017, right? Okay, so it's a relatively short amount of time to where you've gotten already 20 some markets, which is amazing. And it's not just a network of 1099 contractors. So building out employees in all those places is incredible, really. But I'm sure somewhere along the way, you guys started trying something or working on something that just wasn't working. Or maybe some failed experiments. So is there one that you can go into some detail on or share about?
I think one assumption we had early on in the business was that we would do a lot of work in areas of density, like dense urban areas, right? So that's one of the reasons that we entered Philadelphia as our third market.
It needs a lot of renovation, by the way, please. That's my hometown area.
We're doing a lot of work there now. But what we've found is that we're really doing just as much work out in the suburbs. We're getting business from every street within our coverage area. So I think that's one assumption that turned out to not be true. I think another thing that we've implemented that we didn't do early on is the materials portfolio. So when we first began the business, we made recommendations about the materials to be used, but we still, the seller still weighed in a bit more. But what we found is that really slowed down the process, right? Because sellers have opinions. And so creating this.
Have you ever seen sellers pick out the right paint color?
Not personally, no.
That takes weeks.
Yeah. But now that we have, that we have this really great portfolio, we show them, these are the vanities we're recommending, B, and speeding up that whole process. I'll tell you, we have had recently a property, we've had a couple like these, where the homeowners have come to us, the realtors and the homeowners have come to us, and they've had enough equity, but there's been some outstanding circumstances. So they're they're elderly. There's one family I'm thinking about in Houston. They were an elderly couple. They really didn't want to be in the home during the renovation because they just knew how hard it would be on them. They also had an outstanding tax bill that they were worried about paying. And, but the home had so much potential, and making a good profit on this property was really going to be the difference for them between a comfortable retirement and an uncomfortable one. And so we paid for their temporary housing. So we relocated them. We paid off that tax bill for them.
Wow.
And, those are the types of choices that I'm so glad we have the ability to make. I'm glad we continue to focus on the homeowner's interest, even when it adds an extra element to the process. I think, yes, we're a tech company that's modernizing the renovation experience, but at the end of the day, renovation and real estate's still about people and relationships, and you can't automate that relationship. So we're staying really, really true to that.
I love that.
Yeah. And then of course, yes, we have our project managers. I always encourage them to send us pictures, and they share them in our Slack channel of weird things they find behind walls, right? So, like old weird antiques that maybe were medical instruments at some point.
I can share a story about that.
Oh, yeah.
So my rental up in Washington, it's had, I think 3 different addition phases. It was originally built in 1930. And so one roof pitch angles into a different angling roof pitch. And the guy I bought the house off, when he re-roofed, they didn't put any flashing or anything to create a seal where those pitches come together. They just cut the shingles. So water was just, getting underneath, and it would go down the roof that was covered, and then it was sitting on top of drywall. So one day when my drywall was bubbling because of the rain in the Northwest, I realized, well, I've got to replace this. So I ripped out the drywall, and there was, the standard sports drink bottles, food wrappers. It was the underwear that I thought was weird. It was like, come on, someone did that intentionally. They're like, someone's going to laugh about this.
Right.
I was not happy about having to pull that out of there, but
that's not an accident. Yeah.
No. It was just weird. Well, let's keep it moving here. I want to hit on one more thing, and then we'll jump down to the final segments here. You're in 20 some markets. You're expanding some new markets. Only up and running since 2017. And really, honestly, fairly, I would say only 2 rounds of funding, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yes. But how many deals have you guys been able to get into, or end customers have you been able to work with in that time period?
So right now we are on track to complete 1,000+ renovations before the end of the year. And I think the real result there is the amount of profit we've added for sellers. So we've generated close to 18 million in additional profit for sellers through our renovation. Wow. So on some homes it's 25K, on some homes it's much more than that. So that's a number we're proud of. We have about 75, maybe up to 80 now, full-time employees.
Wow. Good on you guys. Well, with that, we're going to transition into my favorite part of the show. This is the game I like to call For the Future.
Okay.
For the Future is a segment where I get to ask each guest who comes on the show to give their best predictions based on the following 4 questions. Rikki, are you ready to play?
I am ready.
All right, let's do this. Question number 1, you kind of just answered it, but what does Curbio look like 1 year from now?
1 year from now, we are in 5 to 8 additional markets. We are over 1,000 renovations, and I think continuing to expand. We probably have many more strategic alliances, which is a program we're rolling out now, which we'll be announcing in the coming days, which are essentially formal partnerships with larger brokerages that we're super excited.
Very cool. I'll be looking for that news. Question number 2, I know we didn't get into the prop tech industry much, but what do you think, what will prop tech as an industry look like as well 1 year from now? Yeah.
I think a year from now, we're going to start seeing more companies in the industry focusing on the customer experience, not so much on the transaction. I think we'll see that continue to happen. And I think the tools around in-home automation and the technology that's working within the properties is going to get much, much cooler, much, much faster. So we're seeing a lot more tools that help you quickly measure and analyze the value of your home and your appliances and all of the solutions with VR that show you what your house could look like if you did X, Y, and Z. I think those are going to become a lot less clunky and a lot more user-friendly in order to get into the hands of realtors. That's, they're trying to make those solutions as easy as possible for realtors to use.
I have to say this. My favorite tech tool right now that's related to the home is the Ruler app on the iPhone. Have you used it?
I have, yeah.
I feel like I've been missing, I don't know how long I've been missing out on it. I only just discovered it like 2 months ago, and it is amazing.
Yeah. There's so much. Yeah, there's so much you can do. And I think, again, Curbio is very much of the mindset that you can automate and streamline a lot on the front end in terms of the estimate and the walkthroughs. And you still have to keep the person, at the center of everything, right? And the relationship at the center of everything. But there's so much you can do on the front end to make that happen.
Yeah. All right. Question number 3, what's one industry trend you think will continue, but you wish would go away?
Industry trend that I wish would continue.
No, that you think will continue, but you wish would go away.
This is definitely something that I have been guilty of in the past, but I think that we all need to stop saying we're the Uber of X. More, I feel like I'm hearing a lot of people say like, oh, our company, we're like the Uber for renovation or the Uber for staging. And I think that's going to keep happening, but it needs to stop. I guess that's not really a trend so much as a talking point.
That's okay. We'll allow it. All right. Question number 4 for the future. What's one thing you believe will dramatically change or fade away in real estate as a result of tech advances?
I think, there's a few in mind. I think that on-site appraisals are definitely going to change a lot because of tech. I think that the way people find and connect with real estate agents is going to shift a great deal. I don't think we're going to see, I think iBuyers are, going to continue to be a solution, but I think we'll see more and more brokerages like they have been bringing that solution in-house. And I think one thing I don't see happening right now, brokerages are still, just like they did with the iBuying solution, they're always trying to bring all these services in-house. As soon as they see kind of a new solution on the market, they're trying to replicate it in-house in order to stay in control of that customer relationship, which makes total sense. I think we're going to see the limits of that. As I think brokerages are going to keep finding creative ways to partner with companies, not just like Curbio, but with other companies to still maintain their ownership of the relationship without taking on so much risk and overhead. That was a long-winded answer, but
that's okay. I'm here for all the details. So I love it. There's so much packed into that. We didn't get into this. Maybe we'll have to get to another time. But I mean, there's obviously everyone is chasing after the lead as early as possible. I mean, you guys are in a very unique scenario because you have to somehow get in front of them before they're ready to put it on the market. So that is like an extra added challenge, but which is why it makes a lot of sense that you're working directly with the realtors in local areas as part of your distribution strategy. So that answers that. But yeah, the fight for who gets there first and maintains the relationship, whether you're listing it and selling it or you're just part of managing the transaction, is definitely hyped up, and it's going to change continually as I think really as consumers perceive it. However the consumers perceive is the best value, regardless of what anybody else say in the industry, that's where they're going to go and give their attention, as well as name and email.
Right, exactly. And I think the benefit of the real estate world right now and the simultaneous continued fascination with HGTV is I think it's actually easier to meet consumer now than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
And that's good for us and for the real estate agent and for the homeowner who's going to make more money. But I do think over the next year, pre-sale renovation is just going to become just the norm. Like people are going to just accept that it has to happen.
Yeah.
So, which I think is a move in the right direction for everyone trying to make money.
Yeah. Love it. All right. We're going to move into the last three. Rikki, these are questions more about you, so our listeners get to know you better. The first one is, what are you reading?
Right now, so I alternate between fiction and nonfiction. So right now I'm reading Such a Fun Age, which is a novel. But I have a stack of nonfiction ready to go. I am going back and rereading some Malcolm Gladwell. And then I'm also getting ready to read, I think it's called Switched. It's by the same authors that did Made to Stick.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward.
That's Dan and Chip Heath.
Yes. Yeah. So it's definitely been out a while, but I have not gotten the chance to read it. So that's what I'm reading right now.
Very cool. Question number 2, who are you learning from?
I learn, yeah, that's a generic answer. I was going to say, I learn from everyone around me.
People have given that answer.
Right.
I do accept it, though I'm glad that you're going beyond that.
Right. I'm very fortunate to work for a CEO who's a serial entrepreneur, so I'm constantly learning from him. I'm also learning more and more negotiating strategies from my 2 small children. And they just surprise me every day with their strategies. They're so good at shaping those strategies to match their goal, to match the audience, to match the scenario. It's impressive.
Children are the most persistent when asking for the sale, and they demonstrate the most natural tendency to mirror and match, which is one of the most important elements in a negotiation.
Right. Yes, exactly. And it's funny because they're picking up. You're right. They start picking up on what I do for a living, and but it's still tough. I remember my son asked me, this is probably 6 months ago, but he was like, so, what is marketing? What do you do? And I was like, well, I try to help my company grow. And he was like, so you just tell it to eat vegetables? And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish that's what I had to do.
If that's all it took.
I know. Yeah.
Here's the smoothie, drink up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Very cool. Last one here then. What inspires you?
And what inspires me is the feedback and the stories we hear from homeowners and the real estate agents that we work with. Every time I, get a note or see a note come in on Facebook or some other social channel about, how they thought they would never be able to sell this house. And now they're able to, move to the town where their children and grandchildren are. Those stories are so great. I think as someone that's a marketer and has been in marketing a long time, it's rare that you get to market a product that you're truly proud of. I think this is not to say, that all marketers are, soulless and, pitching products they don't believe in. I know that's not true. But if you're a marketer that's marketing for a software company or for a type of services company, you might love the product, but, and you might, in your marketing copy say things like it's changing lives and it's truly different. And that might be somewhat true, but at the end of the day, it's still, it's a business product. And marketing Curbio is really a marketer's dream because it's a product that is truly impactful, truly unique, and that you can really feel proud of. You don't ever have to feel like there's no spin involved. That
I love it. Rikki, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time getting to know more about Curbio, what you guys are doing. I thought I had a good vision of it, and I think I've got an even better vision really of how you guys work and the angle. And kudos to you on figuring out, the estimation all the way through the management of the transaction and just getting rid of all the friction on the deal. So very cool. Excited to read the news about some of your upcoming partnerships. But that's just a teaser for everyone listening. Stay on the TechNest email list if you want to get the updates on that. But before we close out, if people want to get in touch with you or they want to learn more about Curbio, where are the places they can go and how do they do that?
Curbio.com is our website, and we're on all the social medias, usually as Curbio HQ. Instagram and Facebook is a great place to check out a lot of our work. We have really great before and after photos there. And we are always sharing great customer stories there. So that's where you can find us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Let's keep in touch. Keep making Philly look better because it needs all kinds of work. And let me know when you guys make it to the suburbs of Seattle. Got a place north of Seattle. I was thinking.
Oh, okay, we're in Seattle now. You might be in our coverage.
You in Bellingham?
I don't want to commit to it on the air, but
fair enough.
send me the zip code and I'll let you know.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. And let's keep in touch.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening to the TechNest podcast. Hey, don't forget you can get on the email list so you never miss an upcoming episode. That's technest.io. That's technest.io. Get on the email list. Go to the App Store, whether you found us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you found us. Leave us a 5-star review and share it with your friends. And if you've got a guest or someone that you'd like to recommend, or if you think that you'd be a great guest on the show, hey, send me an email, nate@realteampanda.com. That's nate@realteampanda.com. See you guys later.